As thousands of protesters poured through the streets of Glasgow during the COP26 Global Climate Summit, another crisis was also brewing. Energy prices have soared to record highs across Europe. Power outages have battered China as an energy crunch there threatens to derail its post-COVID recovery. And that's the dilemma. How do you balance the move towards renewable sources and less emissions while also satisfying growing energy needs that are both cost-effective and accessible? The push to end the use of fossil fuels, although tempting, might not be as easy as advertised. One region of the world that is being directly affected by climate change, but could also hold possible solutions for the global energy shortfall, is the Arctic. Long inaccessible due to ice caps and glaciers, the Arctic is slowly opening up. With that has come more competition between the world's traditional Arctic countries in Europe and North America and emerging powers like China. So how will the opening of the Arctic affect global energy demand? And is a great game brewing with Russia and China on one side and Europe and the US on the other? To discuss how this competition in the Arctic could impact the world's energy security, I am joined by Mehmet Ali Ugur. He is an assistant professor at Yalova University. And from Berlin, Thomas O'Donnell. He's a lecturer at the Hertie School of Governance. Thank you very much for being with us today. Mehmet, why are great powers showing more and more interest in the Arctic region at a moment like this?
Thank you for inviting me, first of all. Let me start with a metaphor reminiscent of 19th century West United States. So we had a gold rush by then. Now I can use probably cold rush for this interest in the polar region. I can, draw a wider picture to explain why all of a sudden we have this cold rush. During Cold War years, especially until mid 1980s, we can call the interest in the northern area as a geostrategic interest. So basically, it was a playground for Cold War, and only the powers interested in the region was United States and Soviet Union. So it was all about controlling airspace and controlling the shortest distance between two superpowers. And then things change. The dramatic things happened in 1980s. We know that the relationship between the two superpowers was becoming softer and warmer, and all of a sudden we have this ominous discovery of ozone hole, and things changed dramatically right after that. So we have now all-inclusive cooperation among polar countries. We observe a knowledge-based explanation can be used in order to understand what was happening during that time.
Mehmet, that's great. I'll have to stop you there, but we'll certainly go back to that hydrocarbons and new maritime routes. Thomas, a question on Russia. Russia is one of the most prominent members of the Arctic Council. It is now currently serving as the chairman. Russia seems to be exhibiting good relations with a country such as Norway, but bumpy relations with the EU. Why is that the case?
Well, this may only be a temporary phenomenon. It's not quite for sure. However, I note that Norway is one of the biggest producers of hydrocarbons, and Norway is one of the few countries that has the capacity to drill offshore in very deep, very cold waters. So if I was Russia, if I was under sanctions for my invasion of Ukraine and so forth that have to do with restricting new oil and gas developments, I might be try to be friendly with Norway. On the other hand, we know that in the last year, Mr. Lavrov and Putin have gone out of their way to embarrass the European Union, to disrespect them publicly. The foreign minister, Borrelli, when he was in Moscow, for example, they're trying to show a certain type of arrogance that the European Union is irrelevant. And we talk to other superpowers like the United States and China. And, well, Norway has technology we're interested in. It may be something along those lines.
Right. And Thomas, Mehmet was just speaking about the value of hydrocarbons in the region. I mean, how significant is the oil and gas potential and research that is being carried out in the region? But also, how sensitive is it to speak about this topic at a moment like this? I mean, during the COP26 summit?
You've asked, there's a lot to unpack there, Ludmila. I would say, whatever's going on in Glasgow, the European Union is expected to recognize in its green financing taxonomy that it must be extended to natural gas. It's really not possible to make a transition without natural gas for some decades into the future. It is the way to replace coal rapidly. And, if you want to increase your renewables, they're variable renewables, you need to have gas standing by to immediately take over. That's part of what happened last winter in the European Union when it was not very windy. We're very dependent on wind now. Much natural gas had to be brought online. Plus, it was very cold, and Europeans' natural gas was depleted. And that's some of the basis of the crisis right now. And so it's very important, natural gas. And Russia has a lot of the natural gas. And yes, for Russia, they've always been the main supplier to Europe. They still supply 40% of the natural gas by pipelines. However, because of sanctions, because of the fact where pipelines go, and they're controversial, we could talk about that. Putin would like as much natural gas as possible from the Arctic region as LNG. It can be put on the water, so to speak, just like oil, and traded to whatever country, whatever sanctions there are, there'll be some market for it. The plan of the Russian Federation announced last year is that they will produce 20% of the world's LNG. You have Yamal Peninsula, the Gaida Peninsula, and Kamchatka. These are all very big projects.
Mehmet, Turkey, would Turkey like to become an observer nation to the Arctic Council? Why, and what are the advantages?
Well, as we know, Turkey has been showing great interest in polar regions recently. And as far as I know, there's already 4 expeditions to Antarctica only. So, it is all because, Turkey is diversifying its foreign policy. And also it's trying to become more, influential, and also, it's trying to participate in all kinds of cooperative efforts so that it can provide some positive impact on it. So basically, that's what it is. But in addition to that, Turkey has pending application to the Arctic Council as an observer, and I believe that the current Russian presidency in the council will evaluate the Turkish application. Well, what kind of impact, what kind of effect it will make? I can say that, well, if we take these, the regional dynamics into consideration, there are some smaller countries, rather smaller, compared to Russia, of course, or the United States and China. They have some concerns about being sidelined. For example, Finland and Sweden, let's say, I just want to give these examples. They have no shoreline to the North Pole, the region, but they are still in the circumpolar area. So they can find Turkey's being in the system as part of the cooperation as productive, again, to counterbalance, Russian pressure. Also, at the same time, we can look at the picture from the other way around. If Russians are trying to balance, let's say, more and more pressure coming from Biden administration, especially in these years, well, that can also help Russians to take Turkey on their side. If we use an international relations terminology to explain this, we can call it soft balancing through institutions.
Right, Mehmet, especially on Russia. Would Russia be happy then to have Turkey joining the Council as opposed to the EU, and why? Would it find some sort of an ally at the table?
Well, this is quite obvious. For Russia, the more Turkey is becoming, aligned with Russia, that's going to be better for Russians' interests. We know that. Of course, Turkey is not trying to, put its Turkish efforts either this way or that way. But anyway, if the Russians are just considering to, have some sort of mind or hand or voice in the Western community, Turkey is the best alternative. With all these years of transatlantic ties, so I think it's a win-win situation.
Thomas, lastly on China, how important is the Arctic region for China, and is the country really eyeing an alternative to its Belt and Road Initiative there, some sort of a polar Silk Road, or is it too early to tell?
No, just on that first. when the United States put sanctions on Russia because of the invasion of Ukraine, and the annexing of territory in Ukraine, they put sanctions on the technology that is needed in the Arctic, in particular Yamal, to build LNG for Novatek is the company, the Russian company. It was the Chinese who stepped in under Belt and Road. What it's got to do with a Belt and Road, traditional Belt and Road, who knows? But they stepped in to give the finance and other assistance so that could happen. Of course, China is the main, and Asia are the main intended customers of all the gas being developed and all the LNG being developed in the Arctic region. And as long as it's warm, it can go there for most of the year. And China needs natural gas very badly. It needs, to get away from coal. I don't know if they care about greenhouse warming, but they do care about protests against pollution in their cities that are very dangerous for the government. And there's a mammoth transfer in big cities such as Beijing from coal to natural gas since 2017. So huge agreements are being made. China does not have access to pipelines because of where it is, except one or two that are going to come from Russia. So they're making big deals also with the Americans. So China is very interested in this natural gas. It's a security issue for them. The more they can get as LNG from the Russians in the Arctic, the less the Americans who control the world's oceans can interfere with this in any conflict. That's one aspect. And I would just say, if I have a moment, this is within the context of Russia wants to be a global player geopolitically, and it uses its oil and natural gas as a lever. Gazprom and the other companies, state companies, are instruments of state. They're not just economic instruments. We have no idea in Europe, one day to the next, what Russia is going to supply and not supply.
Right. Very interesting conversation. Unfortunately, we have to leave you there. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being with us today.